Hello everyone and welcome back to Throwback Thursday. If you didn't see this Tuesday's Throwback episode, I have went back in time to my first ever 50-100 no limit session where I battled with the one and only, the legendary Mike the Mouth Matusow. If you haven't seen the first video yet, you should go check that out. I'll put a link somewhere. You guys will be able to find it, I'm sure. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. At this point, we're about 50 hands into the match. I had been doing some interesting things with like calling and a couple other different things here and there. So let's see how my strategy develops throughout this episode, how Mike reacts, and you know, hopefully I won't do anything too silly. Or I guess it's a video, so maybe I will, and that would be good. All right, let's hop on in there. So starting off today, right, with the sweet old limp with the old 9 king of clubs. Managed to flop 3 of a kind and check back, which, alright, sure, whatever. Well, at least one of the good things about checking back with a hand like this is that once in a while we're going to see Mike pot on the turn here. Like, as we had seen, his bet sizing seemed very often to be either pot or not. Like, he was either checking or folding or bet or potting. So I think actually checking back here isn't crazy, but my entire strategy just isn't. It's very, you know, it's very 7 years ago. That's what I can say about that. So I think that at this point I would like to see myself raise, but anything is possible, I suppose. Raise it is, and that gets done. Pretty normal hand of poker, all in all. Deuce is over here in the big blind, and now Mike is limping. Friendly poker all around. Decide to check, sure. Okay, check, 100, fold. Very nice, friendly, straightforward poker we've got going on here. Sure. Limp here with king 4 offsuit, and I suppose we're just going to fold. We saw in the last video I folded ace queen on a board that was more connected than that, but I was pretty sure I wasn't going to be defending with king 4 offsuit on the 7-7 jack board if I wasn't going to defend with ace queen in the video before. I called here in the big blind with 7-8 offsuit. It's probably fine, you know, whatever. Managed to flop a pair and it goes check here. So I'd like to see myself bet on this turn. That seems like a very reasonable thing to do, but I guess we'll see what I decide. I mean, we probably have the best hand here. It's possible we don't, of course, but it's at least probable that we do. So let's see what I decide to do here. Check. All right. Oh, this is so sad. Well, I still feel the same way. I think we still have the best hand. Let's see if I decide to do anything about it. Nope. Oh my god, dude. That was terrible. We just checked down. What am I thinking? Oh, brother. Alright, well, the limping train continues. I would really like to see myself limp and the re-raised here. That would be quite the thing to see happen, but let's see if I... Nope, just limp call. Alright, that's a pretty good flop for us. So Mike decides to pot it. I would really like to see myself just call here. I mean, you know, we have this hand such mortal lockdown. Like, you know, Mike's almost for sure drawing like to 2 outs or less. And raising here on a board that's connected. We have all the good cards, right? We've got all the good cards in our basket over here. So I'd really like to see us call and maybe let Mike spike something, you know, anything would be great. And this board is just so dry right now that I'd be, especially with Mike's pot strategy, I'd really like to see myself call, and I will be very upset with myself if I see a raise here. Huh. Okay, good. Pretty sweet little turn card, although it's not really the greatest because you think the hands that Mike's going to raise pre-flop and bet on this flop, there are not too many hands that are going to have flushes here. He has to have like ace queen of clubs or something like that, right? So let's see what Mike decides to do here. But if he checks, I think the plan will be to probably bet like in the $900 range. And if Mike bets, then, you know, we're probably just going to call it because he's probably going to be potting if he does bet. So Mike does check. I actually don't like despise checking back here either, but I think I'd like to see myself bet, you know. Give Mike a opportunity to check raise all in. If it just has like ace jack, you know, that would be great. If maybe he wants to check raise all in with like ace jack with the jack of clubs, which would actually have outs against us. That's what he actually had. Not that many outs, but he would have 2 outs. So let's see what I decide to do here. I don't really think I can go too wrong as long as I don't bet like, you know, near pot myself. 800 seems great. That's probably the best bet sizing I think I've got so far. That seems like a perfect bet sizing, and Mike decides to fold. Alright, can't be upset though. We got it right, it seems. Alright, sweet. Chipping on up. So we started the session with $4,000, so we managed to be up $10,600 as of right now. That's pretty sweet. The good old days, the golden days of high stakes poker and on the internet. I miss it. It was the greatest, you know? You could just sit down and play anybody for all this crazy money. Sure. Oh, look how hot we're running. This is great. Decide to check here. Hopefully I'll be deciding to check raise, but you know, who knows? Goes check. I would really see myself bet here, but we haven't really seen too much turn aggression. Like an actual, like, surprisingly low amount of turn aggression so far. Okay, so at least I decided to bet at this point. This is a great river to potentially check to Mike. You know, we don't think Mike is too strong because he didn't bet on flop, right? So it looks like that. Imagine if Mike just has 3-4 offsuit here, like a hand that didn't really want to bet flop, is happy to call turn, but now is here in the river with what probably isn't the best hand, but, you know, could be, but might not be. I think it makes a lot of sense to check here and let Mike bluff. He has so many, like, 7-8s and random other stuff that he might show up with, and just potentially might have aces. I think that letting Mike pot it and then probably re-raising is the play that I'd like to see myself make. I don't think betting is awful, but I think I like check raising is probably best. Nice. Whew. Nice little check we got there. Let's see if we can catch Mike into doing something aggressive. Oh, look what we've got here. That's fantastic news. All right, so the question is, do we want to check call or check raise? So given that Mike checked back on flop and then just called on turn, there's some chance that we're behind here, but, you know, we're behind to only 3 of a kind and better, right? So Mike would have to have like 3 6s and just call turn. Yeah, that's possible, but he might also raise turn with a hand as good as 3 of a kind. Board's pretty connected on the turn, right? So I think that it's unlikely that Mike has 3 of a kind. He might have a straight. It's possible that he could have like 4-7 or deuce 4. I mean, those two are very unlikely, and I believe he raised pre-flop, but I don't think he's been raising like all the time, so he might actually just fold those hands pre-flop or just call. So I don't actually think he has better than us too often. So the question is, what should we check raise to if we're going to check raise? And I think we would probably check raise kind of maybe, since we don't think he's that strong, we probably can't check raise that big, right? That's pretty reasonable. I don't think we can check raise that big. I just don't think he'll call that much, right? Because if he had even had a 10, he'd probably like have bet the flop. So maybe we get paid off by like ace queen here, something like that. But even that is like slightly hard pressed to call, I think. But I think making it 3,000, 2,800, both of those numbers are fine. I think calling is a little bit too tight passive, but let's see what old Jay Carver decided to do. I'm all in. That's right. I'm all in. Eat it. Just give him the whole business. Let's see if Mike decides to wake up with a hand that can call here. I mean, it's fine. I think shoving is fine as well, but I mean, you know, it definitely seems like Mike is kind of sticky in spots like this. We saw in the first video that he was a little bit sticky in spots like this and didn't want to fold with the hand we had a flush, right? So I think that this can't be too bad. This does kind of look weak. I think it's going to be a little bit hard for Mike to call for 4,500 more unless he happens to have a hand like ace-6 or ace-5, something that was like unlucky that we have just coolered the shit out of again. So I think that this is probably a little bit too much, but let's see if Mike ends up calling here. Nope. Still a decent pickup for us. A little 12 hundo on the river there. Back to the calling it is. By the way, today was the release of PLO on Ultimate Poker. I'm very excited about that. I actually think there's also 08. I think there's actually 08 and PLO that are now available. So there's nothing running right now because it's 7 in the morning. So I couldn't play PLO for you now, but tomorrow's video I think will probably be PLO if I can do anything about it. So I think that this obviously sucks. I mean, if Mike had more, we would just call. If Mike had less, we would just shove. He's like right in that middle range where I'm not loving anything, and I don't really know what I do here. I think that we've seen Mike do this enough that he could definitely be bet folding. And if that's the case, we should be putting pressure on here, right? There's already 1,200 in the pot. He only has 3,600 left. I think, you know, raising effectively all in, even though maybe we may make it like 1,800 and then call it off or whatever it is, seems fine, right? We don't love it, but I think that's this hand is probably good enough that we can just check raise. He'll fold enough better hands than 6 high that I think that probably makes sense. Let's see what I decide to do. Calling just seems kind of gross. Yep, I just decided to ship it. All right, seems okay. All right, and Mike calls. Looks like we're going to need some help here. Let's see what we're up against. Just king and 10. All right, well, we're not in the greatest of shapes, but we're not in that bad of a shape either. Let's see if we can manage to just rip off the old heart ball. I have no idea whether or not I get there, by the way. I did no review of this. All right, so far, not there. Looks like we end up with 6 high. Mike ships that one there. All right, well, I think that was a relatively normal hand, all in all. I don't think you can really say too much about that beyond, you know, I could have played that hand differently, of course, but I think given that he only has 4K, we certainly played it reasonably enough. We defended here with king 4 of hearts, managed to flop ourselves a heart draw, and then turn ourselves a gut shot to go along with that, and Mike has just decided to give us no action, so alright, there's that. Gonna limp here with the old queen 10, also seems fine. Limp and call. So, this is kind of interesting, right? Let's think about what we want to do here. I think the best play is just probably going to be to call. Like, you know, I think that at this point, there's really nothing else that makes a lot of sense. You know, folding would be out of the question, and unless you're like a super nit, you know, folding is out of the question. And I think raising doesn't really accomplish a ton either. So I think calling makes the most sense here. If you really think about like all their decision trees, you know how we love our decision trees here on Run It Up. So I think we should just call. Let's see what old J. Carver feels about that. Calling. All right. So at this point, I would expect to see Mike check here some percentage of the time, but I think even if he bets, we're probably still going to be tempted to call. I mean, it sucks because if Mike could bet an amount that wasn't pot, we'd be more tempted to call. This is actually an opportunity where I think betting pot is like really not a bad bet to make because it puts so much pressure on us. Let's see if Mike decides to give us the business here or let us take a free card. Free card it probably is. Now, we could bet here for value and protection. I think that's actually a reasonable potential option. I would bet you that old J. Carver doesn't understand these things and is just like happy to see a river card here. He's just like, oh, sweet, free river, I'll take it. So I bet you that old me checked back here, but current me thinks that this is probably a spot where our opponent doesn't really have a better hand than us, and we should probably make him pay to see a river. You know, like he's basically saying, I don't have very much, and we do have enough that we probably have the best hand. So I'd like to see old me bet, but I have no idea what I decide to do. My guess is that we check back. I told you, nit bitch J. Carver. Well, super unfortunate river for us here because if we were ahead on the turn, Mike has at least potentially caught up now on the river and now is in first place. So if he pots it here, it's going to be kind of a gross situation, but let's see what he does. I actually think there's some cool opportunity to like bluff shove, just rep like the old king queen and just be like, I'm all in. I think that would be pretty sick, but I don't know if I have that move in my arsenal back in 2006. Let's see what happens here. Check. So even though he checks, I'm not necessarily inspired by the fact that we're ahead here, like that we're potentially ahead. Like we could be ahead, Mike could just be giving up, but it's at least somewhat possible that he has just like ace-5 offsuit and just doesn't want to bet and let us either blow him off the hand or like, you know, raise generally, I think. I think maybe he's letting us bluff, and I don't know. Like, I'm not necessarily convinced that we have the best hand when he checks, but I would assume that we're checking back once he does check. All right, we were not beating queen and jack. That is unfortunate. All right, so the match continues. So what do we think about that hand? I think he played that hand pretty reasonably, right? He just re-raised and then, we limped, he raised, we called, he bet. Yeah, that all sounds like a pretty reasonable stretch of decisions for him. We limped here with king 4 and Mike bets pot. I think we could arguably call or raise, probably going to be calling. Yep, looks right to me. Let's see what Mike does here. Against the check here, I'd really like to see myself bet. Please? Oh, God. Oh, God. No. We have the best hand, but we would not like action. No, that's not what we want here. No action, sir. Oh, brother. Well, now what? I mean, this is like a great example of why you shouldn't play passive poker, generally speaking. Like, you know, you have the best hand. Put a bet in there. Let him charge him to catch up with you or to stick around and see the last card. Well, what are we doing here with top pair? We're just like, you know, we're not in the free card business. We're in the caging business, I'll point out. And that was just definitely not caging back in 2006. That was a free roaming Mike Matusow. that was not the caged Mike Matusow that we needed to, you know, we needed to see there. Brother, not the greatest. You know, you gotta, at least we can see progress. 7 years ago, we've come so far, you know? The things that I thought were good poker in 2006. Oh, brother. That's all I gotta say about that. So we raised pre-flop here, I bet in the flop. I'd have no idea if I'm gonna bet on this turn, but given how unaggressive I've been on turns in the past, my guess is that we're gonna be unaggressive on this turn as well, despite turning a gut shot. And it's not even, excuse me, it's not even like a great spot to bluff, I don't think, on the turn here, but, you know, I guess we'll see what I decide to do here with the old 6 and 4. Check back, of course, unsurprisingly. And now at this point, I can't imagine. Oh, okay. I guess my imagination wasn't quite up to snuff, I suppose. I would never have thought I would bluff here because this bluff makes absolutely no sense, right? Like, what in the world do we have that wants to bet now? Like, we have a 7. Does that make any sense? I mean, like, the only advantage to this is that there are some hands that Mike can have here that will just have to fold. Like, it could just have, like, 10-8, which can't call. You know, 6-8, both of which beat us but can't call. Hands that have, like, clubs in them that he didn't play aggressively. Like, there are some hands that will just fold to a bet here, but they would also fold to, like, 600, and we could save ourselves the $400 when he calls with, like, ace-5. So I don't think this bluff is particularly viable or particularly well constructed in terms of sizing, but you know, I guess it's not awful. I just don't think it makes any sense given that we didn't bet on turn, so we can't really have anything that good, you know. So we're kind of representing having a 7 here, and Mike could just check raise, and this is just like a bad $1,000 down the drain. I think I think that's what that is. I don't know what this was. This is like some sort of like a lever. We're pulling out a drain lever. Let's see if this gets through here or if Mike looks this up. I told you, $1,000 down. Look, he called with king high. That's what a bad bluff it is. Oh my god. Oh, this is embarrassing. Get out of here. Get out of here, Jay Carver, if you're bluffing me. Mike Matusow does not. He just like the sheriff badge. That's right. Oh my god. I'm sure back in the day I was like, oh my god, oh my god, I got owned so bad. I owned myself. I put myself in the cage there. Like, what am I doing? Oh, brother. Raise, bet, check, bet. Yeah, sure. That makes a lot of sense. Stupid Jay Carver. You're right. That was very stupid. I don't know what I was thinking. I actually feel like, and oh my god, I just bet fold a pair here, huh? Well, I guess Mike hasn't check raised too often, so I suppose you can put this in, you can give some credence to this, some credit to this. I actually think that, not that we have to necessarily say right now for sure, but I think we're almost at a point where I would consider quitting. Like, it feels like the momentum has turned a little bit, that, you know, we've kind of lost a lot to Mike, and I think that he's starting to, like, once he gets a big bluff like that, he picks off, well, not like a big bluff, but once he picks off a bluff like that, he's starting to feel more confident and to put us in more and more bad situations. Like, I think that we might want to, this is a good time to look at quitting, I think, you know. Just saying, this is one of those opportunities where in a real match, I would at least, you know, be considering it, given that the momentum has changed so much in the last 20 hands, you know. So I decided to lead here for some reason, and Mike decides not to punish me for that. So, all right. I was like, do I have the best hand? And Mike is like, yes, you do. Okay. All right. Friendly poker. Sure. Folding the old queen and 3 over here. So if you haven't seen yesterday's video, you should go check that out as well. It's been a pretty solid week of videos. We had a heads up sit and go on Monday. We did the Mike Matusow video part 1 on Tuesday. And we did the, yesterday was a 1-2 session, I think, or 50 cent a dollar. It was 50 cent a dollar cash game scholar. That's what yesterday's video was. How could I forget? And then we got this, a little PLO action tomorrow, and that's a pretty strong week of running up, right? I think that seems like a pretty solid offering all in all. Don't know if I decide to defend here. I mean, sometimes I really don't know what I would have decided back in the day. Like, to me, this seems like a spot where if I was like feeling good, feeling confident, feeling like I had initiative and momentum, that I would consider calling here. But given that we don't have any of those things and we've kind of been given the business, I feel like folding probably makes the most sense. But let's see what I decided to do back then. I just decided to fold. What a nit. Well, I mean, I was appropriately being a nit because, you know, this was, you know, potentially up to like 20% of my current bankroll at the time. So it's at least possible that, oh, all of a sudden 315 I decided to make it. Sure, okay. You know, it is a pretty big percentage of my bankroll. So taking a shot like that for like $600 with king 6 of clubs in a spot where I'm not going to really feel super happy about putting him in tons of like pressure situations. Like I'm not super comfortable with risking my stack in like, you know, close spots, I think, with this for this much money. I think back in the day. So I might be wrong about that. I could have more money than I think I had back in the day for this particular session. But I understand folding because you can't really competently do much in terms of like fighting back if you're, you know, the value of calling with king 6 lowers when it comes 10-6-4 and he pots and you're just like, I don't know what to do. You're supposed to just shove or something, I think. But, you know, I don't want to put myself in that spot for like the marginal situations for 9K. All right, I decided to call here for some reason. I'm sure I have some devious things in mind, or at least I would hope so. No promises, but at least I would hope so. I do have a 3 flush and a 3 straight and overcard second pair, so that's pretty sweet. Oh brother! All right, well that's $600 we'll never see again. Great little donation there by old Jay Carver. Yeah, that doesn't seem like the greatest hand I had ever played in my life, but hey, it happens from time to time. So I would definitely have strongly considered quitting at this point in the session. Just saying, like, current Jay Carver feels like we're getting run over quite a bit, and I think that this is a really good time to pull the ripcord. Actually, I think that if you're a fan, if you're trying to get better at poker and you're like a professional poker player or an aspiring poker player, if you do these session reviews, which I highly recommend that you do, including of your own sessions, I think if you go back and look at things like this, noting like, this was probably a good time to quit. That's actually like a really good note to go back and say like, wow, am I consistently not quitting often enough? And like, look how much money we lost if we had just quit after like that 6-4 suited hand already. Now that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Maybe you're in the zone playing well, but if you're consistently looking at your hand histories and saying like, wow, it looks like momentum really shifted here. I really maybe should have considered quitting. That's a good note to come up with. You know, it's a pretty strong note to come up with, all in all. So something to keep in mind for those of you looking to improve. I'm sure there are some of you, you know, decide to defend here with 5-6 offsuit. Something else that I think we could cut, defending with hands like this. I hope I bet on this turn, but who knows? Looks. I would actually guess that I don't, but I hope that I do. All right, I do bet here. Oh God. I mean, I'm just folding. I don't think there's any way I can continue. Yeah, you can see we're being put in the cage here pretty brutally. I think though, like I'm doing it to myself. Like Mike is definitely playing well, putting us in the cage for sure. But I think we're doing it to ourselves a little bit because we're defending with hands like 5-6 offsuit when we're losing. So like we're already losing and getting beat up on. That's not the time to play looser. It's time to play tighter, right? Like we're not, you know, I think that it's a pretty big mistake for us to be in there like battling with the old 5-6 offsuits and stuff like that. Like we should just be folding those more marginal hands once we've been beaten down like this. So I think that I would actually bet that my like B and C game is like way worse than my A game like these days. Oh, look at this little thing. So basically what I meant by that is like I'm sure that my A game was fine. You know, let's say my A game was like, you know, the best I could play back in 2006. I bet you that I got to my B and C game much faster and they were much worse than I would these days. So like if this exact same thing happened to me today, I would be willing to bet you that I would have I'd be playing very similarly and thinking logically and calmly and collected. I mean, this is 7 years ago, you know, I was 19, you know, so I'm sure that my like tilt control wasn't quite up to par. So if people probably watching this, you guys might see some familiarity with your own game in terms of like the stubbornness and maybe some other decisions that is just unnecessary, right? Like let's try to think logically and create strategies that make sense and tactics that make sense, right? So I limp here with aces, which makes sense given that we've been doing this all the time. And I think I'd like to see myself check raise, or limp raise, I should say. That seems like a cool thing to do. Making it like 800 here is cool with me. All right, tricky. And then Mike checks. This is unfortunate. That's sad. all that tricky for $300. All right. Defending here with the old queen and jack. Puppy dog feet. That's right. All right. I hate this. Not sure why I just didn't check call like a normal person would have done. This might work. This may work, but we're effectively turning our hand into a bluff when we could just call and leave it as a pair. I mean, Mike can shove here so easily with like, any kind of like, ace nine with an ace of spades. Like we make so many mistakes here if Mike decides just to shove with any set of hands that have spades in them or anything else. So I really don't like this too much. But, it could definitely work. It can't be too bad. It's not too bad, but I don't think this is the best way to play this hand. Let's see if Mike punishes us for this. All right, the cage door is open, Mike. Let's see. Oh, brother. Call. Well, I have no idea. I have no idea what to do now. This is the cage we've designed for ourselves. I mean, we probably have the best hand, but it's not even like that probable. Mike could have flushes, Mike could have sets, Mike could have kings, Mike could have ace queen, or he could just have like hands with single spades. He could have 2 10s. There are lots of hands he could have that we are ahead of, and there are lots of hands he could have that we're not ahead of. And we have like 1.25 pot size bets behind. This is a mess. This is a mess of a situation we've got ourselves into here. Okay, I'm all in. Okay, I just decided to bet the old $3,200. All right. I mean, the thing that sucks about this is that if Mike continues, we're just fucked, right? That's it. There's like no way we're ahead if Mike puts money in the pot here. Almost for sure. And we're putting so much money of ours in here, like, this is just like a brutally bad hand situation for us. Like, think about how much nicer this hand would be if we just called, and then we called pre-flop, obviously, and then we check called flop, turn the king, and it's like, okay, we're probably ahead now. But because we check raised the flop, we juiced out all those bad hands, right? We said we already did this. If Mike had 8-7 of hearts, we just did this to 8-7 of hearts on the flop, right? It's gone. We killed that hand. That hand is driven out of here. So at this time, Mike only has like hands that were good enough to withstand a flop check raise. Wouldn't it be nice if we could go back and let him have all of those shitty hands that he had on the flop now on the turn, which would make us way ahead of all of those hands? Wouldn't that be nice? That's a poker concept. If that doesn't sound familiar to you, I think that's a decent one to chew on. So we do get it through here. Just that idea of like, we've talked about the hand wagon before. That's another very good visual, I feel like. You want certain hands to be on the hand wagon to be at the certain port of the hand, destination. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe not, but maybe you do. You always want to kind of think about like what are the hands that our opponent can have in certain spots, and when we do things like check raise there, we're effectively putting like a border patrol and not letting a lot of the wagons through. Right? That's what we're kind of doing a little bit. So I think that was just a very stillily played. That's right. I think that was a very badly played hand by us. So not my favorite. Oh, 700. Sure. Hopefully we fold, but anything is possible. All right. Thankfully, it doesn't, we don't just like limp call for 700 there. Okay. Pretty good flop for us here. Hopefully we'll get some money in. Nice. What do we do here? Check and raise. I think this is fine. We've seen this happen enough times now that I actually like my sizing. It's not too big, and we're just like, we got a good hand. We're going to war. I think that's all right. Seems fine. Seems fine. Could make it. We should be making smaller check raises, generally speaking, against a guy who's potting it like this. But I'm sure the words finesse were not in my poker vocabulary back in the day. Deuce does not complete our straight here. Let's see. Okay, no barreling. We're all friends here. All right, no barrels here. Boy. How much tougher would it be? I mean, like this is like literally like a showcase hand for why you should at least sometimes consider bet. It's so much better than like what we did here, Like there are so many better hands than 9-7 offsuit that would fold on the turn and or the river if we gave him the old 1-2. That's right. If we give him the old 1-2, I think we can get him to fold so many more hands here by the river, and like including this one, for example. And the way I play this hand is just weak, passive, not the greatest. Not the greatest. No, I don't want to see that hand again. Thank you very much, though. No, thank you. Hey, progress, right? That's all you can say. All right, decided to just lead out there. All in all, for my first, I do want to remind you guys that this was the very first time I had played this big, and I hadn't probably even played that much heads up before. So there's definitely a lot of like finesse things that I just didn't grasp back then. Like there are a lot of concepts that I just didn't understand. And I think like if I was reviewing this and this was like a student of mine that was playing, I would say that by far the thing that I messed up the most, besides the pre-flop thing, is actually interesting and might be okay, but the turn is by far where I messed up the most, I think, generally. And also like I'm sure I didn't have a lot of experience versus the strategy that Mike was employing, which is why playing a lot and a lot of different people definitely helps. Like the strategy that Mike's playing with, like the potting, is not something that I was familiar with. Sure, it was the first time I had encountered it, or at least very likely the first time I had encountered it. Nice little river card there. All right, got it done. So yeah, I'm sure there were lots of things that were new to me for this session, not least of which is the pile of money that we're playing for. So I think that might be somewhat credited to why some of these decisions seem less than phenomenal. But it's 2006. What can I say? We've turned a pair here, and I've decided to defend that pair. Seems like the right thing to do. At this point, if Mike had an ace, he would have just bet, right? Let's be real. So I think that and even if Mike had a 10, he might consider just betting, It's at least possible that Mike would bet with a 10 on the river here. So it's probably we have the best hand. He could have a 5, could have an 8, could have a pocket pair. He could just have absolutely nothing, like the old 9 jack or diamonds or something like that. But I don't think he has those hands. I don't know. This could be a spot for potential value on the river. I'm not sure what I evaluated on back in 2006, but I look at this as a spot where we could potentially make money here. Let's see. I don't agree. I guess we weren't making money off 7 deuce anyway. But maybe we bet 300. He makes it, 1800. We call. He has 7 deuce. That would have been great, glorious. Looks like it was not to be. It all starts with that thin value bet, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. Jack 7 offsuit. Limp sounds fine, I guess. At this point, I'm like, oh yeah, limp, sure, standard. All right. Damn, folding gut shots. Such nittery. Such nittery. So this seems, now it's time to be. So this is what I mean. It's like inconsistent. It's inconsistent. The strategy is not consistent. We're folding gut shots, but we're leading out with queen 10 offsuit on 3 heart boards. Like I just don't understand. It's because there is no coherent like strategy. I mean, it worked obviously. So it's the beauty and it's the beautiful part of poker that you can have a complete non-strategy as I did back then and still win money. But as you evolve as a poker player, I think that evolving to be more logical is a good thing as a rational creature generally, I think. But some of the decisions in this just blow my mind. Like we for sure have the best hand on the river, but we don't want to bet. Why? Why don't we want to bet? There are so many decisions that just don't make consistent sense in a large overview perspective, from a large overview perspective. All right, so I think Mike limped, we raised, and then we bet flop. So now here we are, 14 hundo in the pot. Probably have the best hand. I actually think that our best play here is probably to check call. I don't know if we're going to get better hands to fold here on the turn. Like, I guess it's possible we can get a pair to fold on the turn here. It's definitely possible. But I think check calling makes more sense. We still probably have the best hand. Or at least I assume we likely do. Oh, okay. Check, check. Actually, when it goes check, check, it's almost like... I mean, we still could have the best hand, but we probably are even more likely to have the best hand if Mike would have potted on the turn, to be honest. So at this point, I think checking still sounds about right. Let's see if we have to face a bet here. All right, could have the best hand. No. Wow, what a nit. What a nit. We're all being nits apparently. 6-9 offsuit. Check back. The river check back is, I guess, fine, but the turn check back just seems like it's not the greatest. Let me check back on turn on flop here for some reason. Don't know why. This hand is again another beauty. Okay. Bet, please. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god, dude. All right, let's talk about why this river check back is so bad, right? Yes, it's at least probable that Mike doesn't have anything. He was just bluffing. We bet 100. He made it 500. We called, and he goes, "All right, you got it, kid. I'm not bluffing anymore." That's very, very, very possibly the case. He's not calling anything. However, there's no way in HE double hockey sticks that this guy's got a jack. There's just no way. There's no way that he would have a jack, check raise, and then just check. So if we're not beat, we may as well bet because we for sure have everything else beat. So on the off chance that Mike has ace-5 and was just check raising for some silly reason, or wants to call us with a hand like 2-10s and thinks we were bluffing, because it's possible we had diamonds or a gut shot, something like that. So I think that it's better for us to bet and let him figure out whether or not he can win, because we're so likely to have the best hand here. Let's see what he shows up with. So yeah, he had nothing, and of course he had nothing. Like, that's going to be the most likely result here. But yeah, still not the greatest of decisions there. Also, just generally the flop action, not a huge fan. The turn action is fine, and then the river check back is just, don't be a nit bitch, Jay Carver. 2006, Jay Carver needs that advice. Oh my god. Sure, let's just check aces in the big blind. That seems fine. I've also been raising a little bit against his limps, so it seems like it's not like I haven't raised one time ever. I've been raising some of them. That seems a little spewy. Now what do we do? Let's just journey this hand together. Let's not analysis this hand. Let's just watch and see what train wreck occurs. Okay. Okay. It's just very, it's actually kind of interesting to see like my strategies back in the day, because I hadn't reviewed any of these hands before even picking the session. I just remembered the session and said, oh, that'd be a cool video. So it's interesting to me to go back and see like the decisions that I made, and to see like, you know, I remember some of like the mental floundering that I was going through back in those days, and I just didn't understand things. Like, there were definitely gaps in my thought process, and it's interesting to kind of see those from this seat now, because man, there were some big ones. There are some big leaks in that little ship. But, you know, back in the day, everyone was the fucking Titanic, you know? It was like, who is the least disastrous poker player, you know? Like, who's got their shit together the best back in 2006? Okay. I got to be honest and say I'm not 100% sure of the action here, but not surprised to see me just check it down. I believe he check raised flop and then check. We probably could have bet turn, or, you know, probably not river, but we could have bet turn for value protection. Decided not to. Not surprised, but not how I would, you know, put people in cages these days. That's for sure. All right. Managed to flop ourselves a gut shot. Mike decides to palm it. I think we probably just fold. We could call or raise, but, you know, I think folding is fine. That hand is really particularly poor on a board like that. If Mike's at any real piece of it, you know, any kind of like Jack-9 has us destroyed, Queen-Jack has us destroyed, heart draws have us destroyed. So I think all in all, that's a reasonable thing to do. We limp here with 3-6 of spades. Betting seems fine. I had the flop aggression thing relatively dialed in, but for some reason I just didn't realize that, you know, you needed to turn that dial through the rest of the hands as well. Okay. All of you true run-it-up warriors out there know the value of king high, and that I would never check fold king high in these days. This is by far the best hand, but I would bet my morning breakfast that I just check fold here. Oh wow! I guess that means I'm not eating. I don't know what this is. I mean, this is still wrong. Like, it's still wrong, because I mean it's probably less wrong than folding, but it's still wrong. You know, like, I should be just check calling here, because what does this accomplish? This makes him fold all hands worse than king high, which is okay, because if I was going to otherwise fold, I guess that's better than folding. But what it does is it basically lets him call with all his like eights and better, right? He calls with like all his good pocket pairs, his spades, his aces. You know, it just drives out all those. That's right. This is my pitchfork. It just drives out all those hands from, you know, it just drives out all the hands that we would like him to have and that we're actually ahead of. Yep. So now what? I mean, this is, again, we've put ourselves in the cage here. Maybe I can get myself out of the cage. But once again, like, cage avoidance is one of those things we work on and run it up that I did not learn yet in 2006, apparently. I have no idea what I do here. I mean, I can analyze it, but I don't have the slightest clue. All right, looks like I put my giving up shoes on. I was just like, all right, thank you. Thank you. I actually think that I probably had like an inherent non-understanding of like that entire like that entire thought process. I'm sure I had like no understanding of like why I should be check calling versus check raising. Like I'm sure to me, like in my mind back then, I'm sure that having King 7 in that spot was effectively the same as having 7 deuce, which is just not true and just, you know, bad. Okay, we made some money here. That was nice. Let's see this hand again. I think it was just check down to the river. I think Mike raised. Interesting to see him flop a flush draw, not bet, and then not bet on the turn, and then pot it on the river. Interesting decision process for him to not bet flop. The rest of it seems fine, but no flop bet is a little weird. Let's go to the next one. Okay, the limp train continues. That's right, the pain train to Limp Town. That's right, all aboard. All right, 500. All right, sure. Every once in a while, you got to make it 500 and keep your man honest, I guess. 700. Okay. All right. Don't know what to say about that. Seems okay. I don't know if Mike is just tilted for some reason, even though like he won the last big pot. This is a good time to fold, by the way, when he's in this mood, but looks like he lets this one through. Bet. Okay. Not the worst turn card for us. Hopefully we call. Anything else seems insane. Okay. Oh man. Oh god. I don't know what the heck to make of this. I mean I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue what we should do here. I mean if it was me in that seat back in the day, if it was me currently with like the current amount of like money and experience that I have, I would be so tempted to call here. Because what are you doing over there? We've seen him do like these weird like $700 bets. We've seen him do these weird $1,000 like he made it like 700 on the button like 3 times recently. Like he's clearly in that mood. He's in like the mood to spew. Now it's very possible that he has something really good here. Like, but you know, what does he have? The Jack of Spades? I doubt it. What does he have? The Queen of Spades? Again, I doubt it. You know, and we limped and he checked pre-flop, so he doesn't have pocket kings. He doesn't probably have pocket eights even. Unless he has like King 7 offsuit or 7-3 offsuit or I don't know, even like Ace 3 offsuit. In the mood he's in, is he really going to check that pre-flop? So he really has to have a full house here to have us beat. And I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, to a 19-year-old kid, $4,300 is a lot of fucking money. So I have a feeling that I probably just said no thank you and didn't call here. But, God, I am tempted. I have no idea. I was a pretty big degenerate back in the day. So I'm sure I didn't look at this and think, oh my God, that's a lot of money. I looked at this and probably said, scary pot odds. I probably just looked at this and said my hand's not good enough to call, to be honest. But this is a weird bet. Damn it. I really wanted to see myself call for the video's sake. If nothing else, you know. At this point, it's just a heroic memory. Whether I win or lose, you know, who cares? But looks like I saved that $4,300 for another day. Managed to flop ourselves a straight draw here. Calling seems fine. Bluffing time? Bluffing time. All right. Looks like we're going to have to fire one more on the river or not. Okay. I don't love this sizing. Like, you know, this sizing doesn't seem like it makes a ton of sense to me, but let's see if it gets the job done here. All right. Little bluffaroo there. Got the job done. Sure. I don't know if I love that bluff, but it seems like it was at least all right. Queen 9 offsuit. Call and check. Hopefully we'll bet when it's checked to us. All right. So that's it for Throwback Thursday. Let's turn to the front here. All right. So that's it for our Throwback Thursday. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. A little something different. We obviously got to see. We don't see too many sessions of like getting put in the cage like that for such a long period of time. But hopefully, you know, it happens. It happens to us. So hopefully you learned something from that little like review there. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget, let me know in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should subscribe. Don't forget also Facebook, Twitter. I'm actually posting quite a bit on Facebook these days. So check that out. Facebook.com/jcarverpoker. It's in the description below in case you're too busy to listen and write. You know, it's right there for you. Don't forget. Anyway, thanks so much for watching as always, guys, and I will see you back for more very soon. Tomorrow, Pilo. It'll be Pilo it up. How exciting is that? All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.